Why is that old parasite here? We have no room for you." Vanessa's shrill voice cracked through the morning air, echoing across my mountain cabin like a hammer against glass. I froze at the threshold suitcase still in my hand, heart pounding against my ribs. At 70, I had come back to Lake Arrowhead for what I thought would be a quiet autumn weekend, the kind I'd cherished for decades. Instead, I found my own retreat overrun. The gravel driveway where I had once carefully planted marigolds along the edges was clogged with 5 unfamiliar cars. Country music blasted from the living room, rattling the windows. Smoke wafted from the kitchen, carrying the sharp, acrid scent of something burnt. Children I didn't recognize shrieked as they chased one another through the pine grove, trampling the ferns I'd tended for years. Beer bottles lay scattered across the porch steps. My cedar rocking chair, where I'd spent countless mornings watching the fog lift from the lake, sagged under the weight of damp towels and fast food wrappers. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, stood in the doorway as if she were the rightful owner. She wore my wool cardigan, the one I had knitted by hand 15 years ago, and her cold, calculating stare told me I was unwelcome. Vanessa. I managed my throat tightening. This is my cabin. I've been coming here since Robert and I bought it in 1999. Every holiday, every summer, this has been my home. She laughed sharp and cruel. Robert said we could use it however we wanted. You're just here to meddle. We're actually making memories, unlike you sitting around in silence. More faces crowded behind her. Her brother Michael, his 2 sulking teenagers, her mother with steel gray hair pulled tight into a bun, and a couple of strangers whose names I didn't know. One man in a faded Hawaiian shirt waved lazily from my deck cigarette dangling between his fingers. A young woman bounced a baby on her hip while looking me up and down as though I were trespassing. Then Vanessa's mother smirked. "So this is the famous Margaret you're always mocking. I imagined someone formidable. She's rather plain." Their laughter rolled through the cabin, sharp as splinters, each sound driving deeper into the heart of a home I had built with my own hands. There I was at 70 in my plain cardigan and travel shoes, being judged like an intruder on my own mountain retreat. "Where's Daniel?" I asked, my chest tightening. My son had to be here. Surely he would clear this up. "Daniel is busy working as usual," Vanessa sneered, arms crossed. "Unlike you, he actually has responsibilities." She leaned against the doorframe of my cabin as though she owned it. "Look, Margaret, there's no room for you here. Every bedroom is occupied. The kitchen is being used for meals. Your presence will just cause tension." I stood frozen, the air around me colder than the pine winds that swept across Lake Arrowhead. She was banishing me from the very house I had poured my life into, the house I built, after becoming a widow, the house I paid for with decades of mending clothes and tailoring gowns for other people's families. Vanessa smirked. I already spoke with Daniel. We agreed this cabin should be used more often. It makes no sense for it to sit empty while you live comfortably in the city. We have children who need space to grow. Her words struck like stones. 20 years of toil, 20 years of tending every nail, every board, every flower in the garden I planted with my own hands. This was my sanctuary, my safe harbor. "This cabin is mine," I said quietly, though my voice shook. "I hold the deed. I pay every bill." "Oh, that's enough," she cut me off, voice rising. "Always the same speech. How it's yours. Daniel is your son, isn't he? What's yours is his, and what's his is mine. That's how families work." The noise of children playing ceased. Silence wrapped around me as their eyes bore into my skin. A girl no more than 16 stepped closer with a smirk. "Why don't you just stay at a hotel?" "My aunt is right. There's no room here." I smiled faintly, though my cheeks burned. "It's fine, dear. I understand perfectly." Vanessa's grin widened in triumph. They thought I had surrendered. But as I walked down the gravel path, leaving my own cabin behind, my heart carried me 20 years back to the raw, weed-choked land where I first stood, hammer in hand, vowing this place would be mine. They had no idea what they had awakened. I had just become a widow, and Daniel was only 24. It was just the two of us against the world, and I made the most important decision of my life to build a mountain refuge that would carry our name. I can still see that crisp October morning when I stood on the empty lot near Lake Arrowhead, my worn work boots sinking into the soil savings book clutched tight in my hand. Every single dollar had come from years behind a sewing machine. I stitched wedding gowns that weren't mine-hemmed uniforms for children. I didn't raise patched curtains for houses far grander than my own. My fingers split open, calloused and bled, but with each stitch, the dream grew closer. The contractor raised an eyebrow when I said I wanted to build a lakeside cabin. "Mrs. Whitaker, this project will cost at least $50,000. Can you really manage that?" he asked, shuffling through his papers. I laid my savings book on the table. $50,000 exactly scraped together penny by penny. Daniel came with me the first morning the crew arrived. His eyes shone with pride as he watched me mark the foundation lines with chalk. "Mom, are we really going to have a cabin by the lake?" "We're not just going to have it, son," I told him. "We're going to build it together." And so we did. For nearly 2 years, I drove up every weekend. I mixed cement, painted the cedar walls, and planted every pine sapling in the yard. When Daniel's college schedule allowed, he was right beside me, helping choose the stone for the fireplace, the soft cream paint for the walls, and the wide windows that would capture the morning sun across the lake. When it was finished, Daniel wrapped his arms around me on the deck. "Mom, you're the strongest woman I know. One day I'll tell my children how my mother built this home with nothing but grit and love." How had that same boy grown into a man who allowed his wife to cast me aside in the very place I bled to create? This cabin wasn't just wood and nails. It was proof that I, Margaret Whitaker, widow at 50, could carve independence from grief. Every chair, every curtain, every pot carried a story. And the cruelest part was remembering how Vanessa once praised it all. In the early years, she had marveled, "Mother Whitaker, what a beautiful cabin you have. You must be so proud of everything you've accomplished." That was what Vanessa once said as she helped me prepare stews in the cabin kitchen. She played with the children by the lake, even brought me flowers from the village market. When had everything changed? When had her eyes begun to judge me as if I were nothing but a burden instead of the woman who had given her a husband? Maybe it was when Daniel received that higher-paying job in Los Angeles and she stopped working altogether. Or maybe it was when they bought their own sleek townhouse in the city, and she began to look down on the widow who still lived in a modest apartment when not at the cabin. The signs had been there for years, though I refused to acknowledge them. Her comments about my age, "Mother Whitaker, you should really slow down. It isn't healthy to work so much at your age." Her hints about my clothing, "Why not buy something more stylish? Daniel earns good money now. He could help you." And always the remarks about the cabin. What a shame for such a beautiful house to sit empty most of the time. Now I realize the invasion of my sanctuary hadn't been sudden. It had been plotted, cultivated with care, designed to humiliate me and tighten her grip on what I had built with my own hands. As I walked toward my car, something I hadn't felt in decades rose inside me. It wasn't blind rage, the kind that makes one shout and lose reason. No, this was colder, sharper. The rage of a woman who had survived widowhood, poverty, and years of labor. Vanessa Whitaker had made a fatal mistake. She believed I was a fragile old woman who would accept disgrace in silence. She never understood she was facing Margaret Whitaker, the woman who had raised a son alone, $1 at a time, and turned despair into shelter. But what burned deepest wasn't her betrayal. It was Daniel's silence. My son, once my pride, had allowed this. That night, in a plain hotel room costing $85, I swore this battle had only begun. I decided to return to the cabin and try once more to speak calmly. Perhaps it had all been a misunderstanding. Perhaps Vanessa had simply lost her temper from the strain of hosting so many relatives. Maybe Daniel would arrive and set things straight. He was my son, after all. He knew better than anyone what I had sacrificed for this home on the lake. At 8 in the morning, I stood at the front door, my own door, and found it locked. I had to press the bell as though I were a stranger. Veronica, Vanessa's sister, appeared, hair disheveled and still in pajamas. "What do you want now?" she muttered, not even offering a greeting. "Good morning," I answered, holding on to dignity. "I've come to collect some of my belongings, and I need to speak with Vanessa. Vanessa is sleeping, and your things aren't here anymore. We put them in bags in the garage so they wouldn't be in the way. My things in bags." The words cut deeper than knives. "What do you mean, my things are in bags? This is my house, Veronica. Everything here belongs to me." She shrugged. "Look, lady, I don't want trouble," Vanessa explained. "Daniel gave her permission, and it's already settled. No need to stir drama." She stepped aside, but I felt like an intruder crossing my own threshold. The familiar scent of pine and cinnamon candles was gone, replaced by grease smoke and cheap perfume. The living room was littered with mattresses and clothes. My furniture, once polished and cared for, sagged under stains. In the kitchen, my heart nearly stopped. Grease coated the stove, the sink overflowed with foul-smelling dishes, and my finest pots bore blackened scars. "My china plates," I whispered. "Where are they?" "Oh, some broke," Veronica replied casually. "The kids were playing. Vanessa said they were old anyway." Those plates were treasures collected piece by piece through years of sacrifice reserved for celebrations, now discarded like junk. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, my sanctuary. The door stood open. Inside, Vanessa's mother calmly arranged clothes in my closet as though it were hers. "Excuse me," I said, voice trembling. "This is my room." She turned with a dismissive smile. "Oh, my daughter explained everything. Don't worry. I've taken very good care of things," Vanessa's mother said, pointing to plastic bags lined against the wall. "See, I organized your clothes so they wouldn't wrinkle. My dresses, my blouses, my shoes, every personal item I cherished were crammed into thin garbage bags as though they were donations for strangers. 2 children I didn't recognize were sprawled across my bed, drooling on my favorite quilt, while my pillows lay on the floor, stained and flattened. "Ma'am, I need those children off my bed," I said firmly. "Your bed," she scoffed. "Please. Vanessa told me you weren't using this room anymore. The kids deserve comfort, not the floor." It was as though I had stepped into a nightmare. In my own home, they acted as if I were the intruder. 30 years of labor, sacrifice, and devotion reduced to nothing more than an old woman's whim. I descended the stairs, each step trembling with indignation, until I found Vanessa on the terrace. She sat in my wicker chair sipping coffee from my favorite mug wrapped in my housecoat, her phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, Mom, the cabin is wonderful." "Don't worry, I've handled everything," she laughed. The mother-in-law understands how things are now. When her eyes met mine, irritation replaced her smile. "What are you doing here so early? I thought I made it clear there's no room for you." "Vanessa, we need to talk. This house is legally mine. I pay the taxes, the upkeep, everything. Daniel has no right to give you permission without me." She rolled her eyes. "Please don't start your legal drama. Daniel is your son. Children inherit from their parents. That's normal. And we're taking better care of this place than you ever did. Just look around, full of family, full of life." "Full of life," I snapped. "You've wrecked my kitchen, broken my china, and stuffed my clothes into garbage bags." She smirked. "Those old things were useless. We did you a favor, really." My heart pounded. "Where is Daniel?" I demanded. "He's working," she said coolly. "But don't worry, he agrees with everything. In fact, it was his idea. That lie pierced deeper than any insult. I knew my son, or at least I thought I did. Daniel would never have schemed something like this without telling me. But then why wasn't he here defending me? Why was he allowing his wife to treat me as though I were a trespasser? "Vanessa," I said firmly, steadying my voice, You have until tomorrow to get your entire family out of my cabin. This ends now." She laughed that sharp, cruel laugh I had come to know too well. "What are you going to do? Call the police, sue your own son. Don't be ridiculous, Margaret. You can't do anything against us. We're family." She was right about one thing: we were family. But she had forgotten one rule: wolves do not turn on their pack, and she had just challenged the oldest wolf of all. I smiled thinly. "You're right, Vanessa. We are family. Soon enough, you'll understand what that truly means." That afternoon, I returned with an excuse. I had forgotten to grab my blood pressure medication from the bathroom cabinet. Vanessa let me in, though, reluctantly too distracted by the barbecue she was hosting on my deck with her swarm of relatives. Upstairs, I inspected the real damage. My master bedroom, my sanctuary, was overrun. Vanessa's mother had moved my vanity. The mirror was scratched. My drawers bulged with other people's clothing. Two strange children lounged across my bed, leaving stains on my quilt. In the bathroom, my porcelain soaking tub, chosen so I could rest aching muscles after long days, was scarred with black hair dye. The towels I had embroidered by hand lay filthy on the floor. My toiletries had vanished, clearly used by others. But then I found something that made me tremble with rage. Behind my main closet was a small secret compartment, my private place. Inside, my most important documents and heirlooms had been rifled through. My mother's jewelry was gone. The property deeds were wrinkled, tossed aside as though meaningless. And scattered among them were papers that did not belong to me, legal forms bearing Daniel's and Vanessa's names. Hands shaking, I gathered them up and began to read. It was a formal request to transfer ownership of the cabin. The documents claimed that I, at 70 years old, was suffering from deteriorated mental condition and therefore no longer capable of handling valuable property. Deteriorated mental condition. Me, the woman who had balanced her books to the penny for half a century, who had built stability from scraps of fabric and thread, who still managed her finances with clarity and independence. They wanted to brand me incompetent in order to steal my home. The papers were dated just last week. That proved everything. The invasion of my cabin wasn't an accident. It was part of a calculated plan to use the law against me. At the bottom of the stack, I found something that froze my blood. A real estate appraisal my Lake Arrowhead cabin valued at $300,000. In Vanessa's handwriting was a note. "With this money, we can buy a bigger apartment in Los Angeles and send the kids to private school. We just need Dee to sign and for the old lady not to cause trouble." The old lady. That was what they called me. The old lady expected to stay quiet while they dismantled everything I had built. I gathered every document and slid them into my bag. I finally understood the truth. This wasn't merely a family dispute. It was organized theft with my own son's name stamped across the page. I walked to the window. Below the terrace was crowded with Vanessa's family, laughing and drinking. Smoke from the grill rose as they flipped meat on my brand new barbecue, serving it on the outdoor plates I had bought for holiday gatherings. Children screamed as they trampled my flower beds, ripping apart the garden I had planted by hand. What stung deepest was seeing Veronica, Vanessa's sister, parading through the house with her phone raised, taking selfies in my hammock in my kitchen in front of my fireplace. On social media, she posted captions like "family vacation at our new lake house. Blessed to call this place ours. Ours." I lifted my own phone and began photographing everything: the stains, the garbage, the clutter. If this would become a legal battle, I would be ready. The lawyer said it was simple. Since Daniel was an only child, he could claim the inheritance early by declaring my incapacity. Once the cabin was in his name, they could do whatever they wanted with it. Early inheritance for incapacity. They were trying to brand me mentally unfit so they could steal my house while I was still alive. Yes, we already arranged the medical papers, Vanessa bragged in a message I later read. Fake medical forms, a bought doctor, $50 to sign a report calling me senile. Daniel hesitated. At first she told me, but I explained it was for the good of the children. They rehearsed the language together, words to make a judge believe I'd lost my mind. The room swam. My hands shook as I realized how carefully they'd planned every detail, corrupt paperwork, fabricated testimony, a calculated betrayal by the son I raised. I could not listen any longer. I left them laughing and walked into the cold. This was not a family quarrel anymore. It was a crime. I would not let them erase my life or my name now. They assumed I'd fold. They didn't know the woman who had counted pennies at a kitchen table and stretched every dollar to build a home. They didn't know I knew the law well enough to fight or that I still had friends in the county who would help. Monday morning, Daniel arrived in his new Toyota, the one he'd bought after his promotion. He pulled into my drive like a man who expects no consequences, kissed Vanessa on the cheek, picked up a laughing child, and walked through my gate as if he owned the place. I watched from the hotel terrace with binoculars and a folder of evidence. I'd spent the night cataloging documents, photographing the damage, and writing down names, dates, and statements. I had copied the appraisal, the phony medical note, and the signatures that linked them all together. When Daniel waved at the grill and raised a beer, he looked ordinary, comfortable in his role, blind to what his signature would mean. My chest tightened, but the fear turned to focus. They had exposed themselves. Now the work began. I waited 20 minutes before walking toward the cabin. I wanted him to feel comfortable to believe he was in control. When I rang the bell, Daniel opened the door. "Mom," he said with that strange smile he used when he knew he'd done something wrong, the same half smile from his boyhood. "How are you? Vanessa told me you were here this weekend. Vanessa told you I repeated measuring each word. Is that all she told you, Daniel?" "Well, yeah," he stammered. "She said there was a small misunderstanding, but everything's settled. I thought we'd agreed about what I asked." He grew nervous, fingers twisting his car keys. "About using the cabin," he mumbled. "You barely come here. Daniel and Vanessa's family needs a place for vacations," he tried to explain. "And did you also agree to have me declared mentally incompetent?" His face went pale. What are you talking about?" he blurted. I set the documents on the porch table between us. This, request for property transfer due to owner's mental incapacity. His hands shook as he took them. For a flicker, I saw the frightened boy he'd been the child I had cared for, but the look faded when Vanessa appeared behind him like a storm cloud. "What's going on?" she demanded, voice sharp. "Daniel!" "I thought this was settled." "Mom, you're confused." "I am not confused," I said, "and I am not senile despite the paid doctor's note you forged." Vanessa hardened. "You were spying on our private talks," she sneered. "We're not thieves, Margaret. Daniel is your son." "He's my son," I said quietly, "not my accomplice. He may inherit when I die, not steal this house now." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "How many years do you have left? Let us make use of it instead of hoarding it." Silence landed heavy and brittle. Daniel stared at the papers, head bowed. Vanessa's mother and Veronica appeared on the terrace, listening as if this were theater. The world narrowed and then sharpened. This moment would decide everything. I had photos, receipts, witnesses, and the lawyer's number in my pocket. I would not be easy prey. Calmly, I folded the papers, met Daniel's eyes, and prepared to fight for good. The children stopped playing and watched us. "Did you really suggest my mother hurry up and die so you could have her cabin?" I asked, and Daniel finally raised his voice. "I didn't say that he protested," Vanessa answered quickly. "I only said she doesn't need so many properties at her age. Who are you to decide what I needed?" I demanded. "Who do you think you are?" I said. "You invaded my home, ruined my things, stole heirlooms, and plotted to strip me of everything with forged papers." "We didn't steal anything," Vanessa snapped. "Then where are my mother's pearl earrings? Where is my husband's watch? Where are the silver coins I kept in my secret closet?" I asked. Daniel stared. "What silver coins?" he said, surprised. "The ones your wife found when she rifled through my private things looking for a way to take the house," I said. "Daniel," I said in the calmest voice I could find, "tell me the truth now." "Did you know about the property transfer?" Vanessa screamed. Tell her you agreed. Think about your family, not your mother." Daniel snapped at her. "Shut up, Vanessa," he yelled in a voice I had never heard. Silence fell. Daniel never raised his voice. Seeing him lose control shocked everyone. "Mom," he said, voice breaking, I never wanted it to go this far, but you knew about the papers, didn't you, yes or no?" He looked at me and whispered, "Yes, I did." My heart splintered. To hear him admit it with his own voice was a different kind of pain. Vanessa defended the action. The medical report was just a formality. She lied. Families do this when parents get old. It was to protect you. Protect me from what Daniel I asked. From making bad financial choices, he said, stumbling. "Bad choices like spending my money on the cabin," I countered. "We have expenses and children, I understand," he muttered. "So you decided to rob me instead of asking?" I said. "We're helping you be practical," Vanessa declared. "Helping me by faking reports, inventing dementia, and occupying my home," I demanded. "Enough. Daniel, did you consult a lawyer? Are the papers ready?" He swallowed and met my eyes, unable to deny the truth before me completely. "Mom, I'm so sorry. You're asking forgiveness," I said quietly while planning to rob me of my home. "It's not robbing," Daniel whispered. "It's securing the future of my kids." "By destroying your mother's present?" I asked. He had no answer. He just stood frozen, torn between his wife pushing him to sign away my life's work and his mother staring at him with a shattered heart. "It's all right, Daniel," I finally said. "I understand. I know where your loyalties lie." I turned toward my car, but paused at the steps. "One more thing. You thought Margaret Whitaker was a defenseless old woman who would surrender without a fight. You were wrong. I faced them fully. I fought poverty and won. I fought widowhood and won. I built this cabin board by board when you were still a boy with dreams. And now I'll fight you, and I'll win." For the first time, Vanessa's confident smile faltered. I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. With what lawyer, she sneered, though her voice trembled. "You don't have the money for court." I smiled. "Who told you I don't have money, dear?" I walked away with dignity, though my heart felt as though it had been split in two. Daniel had chosen. He had chosen comfort over loyalty, his wife's shrill demands over the quiet truth of conscience. But if they thought I would retreat to cry in silence, they were gravely mistaken. I drove directly to the bank in town. I needed to know exactly how much I had for this war. For 20 years, I had saved religiously even after paying off the cabin. Every month, I put aside $300 from my pension and my sewing work. I had always believed that savings meant power, security, freedom. The manager, Alex Peterson, had known me for 15 years. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said warmly, "how can I help you today? I need the balance of all my accounts," I replied, "and I need to discuss a legal matter." When he turned the screen, my lips curved into the first true smile in days. $87,000 in savings, $23,000 in CDs, $12,000 in checking, $122 total. Vanessa had miscalculated. Vanessa didn't know that Margaret Whitaker had spent her entire life preparing for exactly this kind of betrayal. Every penny saved, every receipt filed, every account balanced. It had all been done to ensure I would never be defenseless. "Mr. Peterson," I said firmly at the bank counter, "I need you to freeze any attempts by third parties to access my accounts, and I need an official letter from the bank confirming my full capacity to manage my finances." His expression grew serious. "Of course, Mrs. Whitaker. Is there a problem my family is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent to take my assets?" I replied. He nodded gravely. "That is serious. Do you need a recommendation for a specialized lawyer?" "Yes, please." He leaned closer. "Thomas Gallagher. Family law and asset fraud. He's the best. Tell him I sent you." I left the bank with a new energy pulsing in my veins. It wasn't just relief knowing I had the financial strength to fight, it was the clarity of finally having a plan. From the parking lot, I called Gallagher's office. His secretary gave me an appointment for 4 that afternoon. The rest of the morning, I spent organizing the forged transfer papers, photos of the damage to my cabin, the list of stolen items, copies of every legitimate title and tax receipt. I even printed Veronica's social media posts, flaunting our new lake house. By 4 o'clock, I sat in Gallagher's elegant office. He was a man in his 60s, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, and steady-handed. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "tell me everything. Don't omit a detail." So I did the invasion, Vanessa's humiliations, the fake medical report, the stolen jewelry, Daniel's silence. Gallagher took notes, methodically asking precise questions. "Do you have the original property documents?" "Yes. The cabin is entirely mine. I paid for every board. I have 20 years of receipts. And the doctor who signed the dementia report, I've never met him in my life." "Excellent," Gallagher said. "That's falsification. A federal crime." "And the jewelry insured," I replied. "My husband's watch alone is covered for $3,000. He smiled. "Your case is solid trespassing, theft, fraud, medical corruption. Tomorrow we file for eviction. Second, we will report the theft of your jewelry to the police. Third, we'll file a complaint about the falsified medical report with the medical board and the district attorney. Fourth, we'll request a restraining order to prevent them from using your name for fraud." "How long will that take?" I asked. "The eviction can be immediate if the judge sees clear evidence of trespassing." Gallagher explained, "In cases like this, where the intruders have no legal rights, the law acts quickly, and the cost, my fee is $5,000 for the entire process. Can you pay it? I can pay you today." His smile widened. "I like clients who take their defense seriously. Mrs. Whitaker, your family thought you were a helpless old woman. They were wrong. You are prepared. I've been preparing to defend myself from the world for 70 years, counselor. I'm not about to stop now. Excellent attitude. But one important question, are you willing to take this all the way? Once we begin, your relationship with your son may be beyond repair." I sat quietly thinking of Daniel, the boy he had been, the man he could have been, the coward he had become. "Counselor," I said, "finally my son betrayed me for money. He allowed his wife to declare me incompetent for money. He humiliated me in front of strangers for money. If our relationship can break over money, then it was never real. And if he regrets it later, it will be too late. Apologies after betrayal mean nothing." Gallagher nodded. "Understood. We proceed with everything. First thing in the morning, we'll file all suits." "There's one more thing," I said. "I want them to learn they underestimated me. I want them to pay socially as well as legally." "That can be arranged," he replied. "Court records are public. The press loves scandals like this." I left his office transformed. I was no longer Margaret Whitaker, humiliated and discarded. I was Margaret Whitaker, armed with the law. That night from my hotel room, I called my sister Laura in Texas and told her everything. "Margaret," she whispered, "I can't believe Daniel would do that after all you sacrificed." "It no longer matters what I sacrificed, Laura," I said quietly. "What matters is what I'm going to take back." "Do you need me to come help you?" she asked. "No, sister. This battle is mine alone, but thank you." I hung up and sat on the hotel bed staring out the window toward the cabin. From there, I could still see the glow of the lights, hear faint music, and imagine the laughter. They were still celebrating as if nothing had happened. Tomorrow would be different. I smiled into the darkness. Margaret Whitaker was returning to war. On Tuesday at 8 sharp, Thomas Gallagher arrived at the cabin with 3 legal documents, a police officer, and a public notary. I pulled up in a taxi at the same time wearing my best gray suit and carrying a folder of evidence. Vanessa's family was gathered on my terrace for breakfast when they saw the official cars pull into the drive. I watched Vanessa's coffee cup slip from her hand when she recognized the police plates. "Good morning," Gallagher said firmly. I am attorney Thomas Gallagher, legal representative for Mrs. Margaret Whitaker, the sole legal owner of this property. We are here to deliver an immediate eviction order for illegal trespassing. Vanessa stumbled forward. What are you talking about? This is my husband's house. We have every right to be here, ma'am, the officer replied. Do you have any documents proving legal ownership? My husband is the owner's son. He gave me permission. And where is your husband now? Gallagher asked. He's at work, she muttered. Gallagher calmly unfolded the deed. Here is the original title in Mrs. Whitaker's name. Here are 5 years of tax receipts, all paid by her. And here is the court-ordered eviction. Vanessa's mother appeared pale and nervous. What is happening? What's happening? I said evenly, is that you invaded my home, destroyed my belongings, stole from me, and plotted fraud. Now you will face the law. Veronica rushed out, phone raised. This is elder abuse. She's crazy. The notary stepped forward. Stop recording. This is an official legal procedure. You are not authorized. Gallagher produced another paper. And here is the formal complaint for theft of jewelry and valuables with a full inventory. We didn't steal anything, Vanessa screamed. Where are the pearl earrings that belonged to Mrs. Whitaker's mother? The police officer asked firmly. I don't know what earrings you're talking about, Vanessa muttered, her voice thin. And the gold watch of Mrs. Whitaker's late husband insured for $3,000, Thomas pressed. Vanessa froze, her face turning crimson. Furthermore, Gallagher continued, we have proof of falsifying medical records to declare Mrs. Whitaker mentally incompetent. That is a federal crime punishable by prison. Medical records, the officer asked. What kind? I handed over the papers I had discovered. A false report claiming I have dementia signed by a doctor I have never met purchased for $50 to justify stealing my home. The officer scanned the report, frowning deeply. He turned to Vanessa. This is very serious. Did you pay for this? I didn't. She stammered. We only wanted to help. She's too old to manage a property like this. And so you tried to steal it with fraudulent documents? He asked. At that moment, Daniel's car roared into the driveway. He jumped out, face pale, nearly gasping. What's happening here? Your wife and her relatives are being evicted for trespassing, Gallagher told him evenly. And you, Mr. Whitaker, are cited as an accomplice in attempted asset fraud. Asset fraud, Daniel whispered. I stepped forward, showing him the forged transfer request. These papers, the ones you were going to sign, the ones Vanessa hid in my secret closet. Daniel went white. Mom, I can explain. There's nothing left to explain, I said. I didn't want it to get this far. Didn't want it to get to what? To me, defending myself. You expected me to stay silent while they stripped me of everything. Vanessa tugged his arm, whispering in his ear. He shook his head, horrified. What is she telling you, Daniel? I demanded. She wants me to say you have mental problems, that you make things up. And what will you say? I asked. He looked me in the eyes. Scared boy and cowardly man in one. I don't know what to say, Mom. Then say nothing. Gallagher produced the final papers. Mr. Daniel Whitaker here is your official citation. You have 3 days to appear in family court on charges of complicity in attempted asset fraud against a senior citizen. They thought I was a helpless old woman they could silence with lies and stolen papers. But the fight has only just begun, and trust me, I'm not finished yet. If you want to see what happens when justice strikes back, hit subscribe now and join me in the next chapter of my story. Because betrayal has consequences, and I'm about to show them all. You authorized the fraudulent use of this cabin, Gallagher said firmly. You are legally responsible for all damages. But I'm her son, Daniel protested. She can't sue her own son. Mr. Whitaker, the police officer, replied, the law makes no exceptions for kinship when it comes to fraud and theft. A crime is a crime, no matter who commits it. Vanessa's mother began to cry. This is unfair. We're family. Families also don't steal from each other, I said calmly. But you decided to break that rule first. Thomas checked his watch. You have exactly 2 hours to gather your personal belongings and vacate the premises. Anything belonging to Mrs. Whitaker remains here. The officer will supervise to ensure compliance. 2 hours, Veronica shrieked. That's impossible. We have children. We have luggage. You should have thought of that before trespassing, the notary said flatly. Vanessa stepped closer, tears glistening but not from sorrow. They were tears of rage. You'll pay for this, she spat. You'll pay dearly for humiliating us. She turned to her husband. Daniel, say something. Defend your family. Daniel's face hardened. It wasn't love. It wasn't remorse. It was something darker, resentment. Mom, he asked quietly, are you really going through with this, Daniel? I replied. I already have. You brought me to this point. But we're family, he whispered. Family, I echoed, letting the word hang in the air. Family doesn't invade homes. Family doesn't steal jewelry. Family doesn't forge medical documents. Family doesn't humiliate its elders in public. You wanted to rob me. I cut in and I want justice. Thomas closed his folder. Ladies and gentlemen, you have 2 hours. The clock has started. Chaos erupted. Vanessa's relatives swarmed the cabin like frantic ants, dragging suitcases, shouting at children, and blaming one another for the downfall. I remained in my garden, standing tall, watching their carefully built scheme unravel. For the first time, I felt the strength of victory stir in my chest. Margaret Whitaker had struck back and won the first round. The 2 longest hours of my life passed like a drama in fast motion. From the deck of my reclaimed cabin, I watched the invasion collapse piece by piece. Vanessa's mother was the first to break. After half an hour of crying and shouting, Vanessa's mother collapsed onto the stairs, refusing to help. This is your fault, Vanessa, she screamed at her daughter. You told me everything was settled. You told me the old woman agreed Mom shut up and help me pack. Vanessa snapped stuffing clothes into plastic bags. She tricked us. She acted defenseless, but she had lawyers and money all along. Veronica still held her phone, but the footage wasn't of champagne toasts in a new lake house anymore. It was humiliation every moment of a family evicted as trespassers. This will go viral, Veronica shouted while filming. Everyone will see what kind of person she is. The officer confiscated her phone. Miss, we've warned you. Record again and you'll be arrested for obstruction. Children darted through the cabin, crying, confused about why they had to leave the paradise they thought was theirs. One little boy, maybe 8, tugged on my sleeve. Ma'am, why are you kicking us out? We didn't do anything wrong. My heart ached. I know, sweetheart, you're not being punished. I'm asking you to leave because this is my house. Your family came without asking. But my mom said it was ours now. Your mom was mistaken, I said gently. Vanessa overheard and stormed over, fury in her eyes. Don't talk to my children. You're confusing them. I'm not confusing them, I answered calmly. You confused them when you brought them into a house that was never yours. This cabin is ours. Daniel is her son. Children inherit from their parents. Children inherit when their parents pass, I replied, not when their parents are alive and well. You're already old, she sneered. Why do you need all this property? Thomas intervened smoothly. Ma'am, every remark about my client's age is being documented as evidence of discrimination and psychological abuse. Vanessa fell silent, lips pressed tight. Meanwhile, Daniel carried suitcases to the car in silence, avoiding my eyes. But when only 30 minutes remained on their deadline, he finally came to me. Mom, he said softly, we need to talk. There's nothing left to talk about. Daniel, I replied. Yes, there is. Look, I admit things got out of control, but we can fix this. We can reach a family agreement without lawyers or police. What kind of agreement you keep the cabin, of course. We accept that it was a mistake to come without telling you. In exchange, you drop all the lawsuits, and the stolen jewelry will be returned. By mistake, in the confusion of moving things got mixed up. Daniel, do you think I'm going to accept that stealing my jewelry was a mistake? Mom, it wasn't stealing. It was a misunderstanding, and the fake medical report was a misunderstanding. He went quiet. And the property transfer request due to alleged incapacity, he stayed silent. And publicly humiliating me by calling me a parasite was a misunderstanding. That was Vanessa, you say. But you were there. You stood by while your wife humiliated me in my own cabin, and you said nothing. I didn't know what to say. You did, Daniel. You knew you should defend me, but you chose silence rather than oppose your wife. Vanessa had her whole family there. The kids were restless. Does that give her the right to insult me on my property? Daniel became desperate. Okay, Vanessa behaved badly, I admit it. Admit you planned to take my cabin with fake documents. Admit you betrayed me for money. I didn't betray you for money. I did it for my family. And what am I, Daniel? Am I not your family? Yes, your family. But Vanessa and the children are my primary responsibility now. So your primary responsibility is to rob your mother. It wasn't robbery. It was securing our children's future by sacrificing your present. Daniel pressed his palms to his face. Mom, you don't understand. We have big expenses. The kids need private schools and clothes. Vanessa's house needs repairs. I work constantly. Money still falls short. And so you decided I should pay your bills with a lifetime of work. You live alone in a small apartment. You don't need the cabin. It's a waste. There it finally was. The truth had come out. Daniel didn't betray me out of love for his family. He had betrayed me because he believed I didn't deserve what I had spent my life building. A waste, I repeated slowly. Mom, I didn't mean it that way. Are my 30 years of working day and night a waste? No. Is my discipline of saving every penny to build this cabin a waste? Mom, please, was raising you alone after becoming a widow. A waste. That's enough. Daniel exploded. It's always the same with you. Always reminding me of everything you sacrificed. Always making me feel guilty for wanting my own life. Silence fell heavy. Even Vanessa stopped packing to listen. There it is. I said calm, even as my heart pounded. You didn't betray me for money. You betrayed me because my sacrifices became a burden you couldn't bear. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You just shouted it. Daniel stood flushed, chest heaving with shame and rage. Do you know the saddest part, son? I asked softly. If you had asked me directly for help, I would have given it. If you told me about your financial problems, we could have found a solution together. But instead, you chose lies, humiliation, and fraud. Why? Because I knew you'd say no. How did you know you never asked me? Because you've always been controlling with money, he said bitterly. Always tying help to conditions. Always reminding me it was your sacrifice, your hard work. I finally understood. Daniel hadn't betrayed me out of greed, but out of pride. His pride couldn't endure needing his mother at 70. You're right, I said quietly. I should have let you stand on your own years ago. I should have stopped rescuing you. But it's too late to change the past. From now on, you'll solve your own problems without me. Thomas glanced at his watch. 10 minutes left. Chaos followed. Vanessa barked orders. Children sobbed. Daniel hauled the last bags with defeated eyes. Finally, they piled into cars. As the engines roared, Vanessa rolled down her window and spat one last venomous promise. This isn't over, you bitter old woman. We're going to appeal. We're going to prove you're crazy, Vanessa screamed as the cars started. Go right ahead, I replied evenly. My lawyer will be waiting. Engines roared dust rising from my driveway. Daniel's car was the last to leave. For a brief moment, he looked at me in the rearview mirror, but I had already turned my back. Thomas walked over. How do you feel, Mrs. Whitaker? Tired, I admitted, but free. Free from pretending we're a happy family. Free from excusing betrayal in the name of maternal love. Free from pretending forgiveness could erase this. The police officer said his goodbyes. The notary finished signing. Thomas placed my own keys into my hand. "Mrs. Whitaker, your cabin is officially yours again." I climbed the steps and sank into my favorite chair on the terrace. For the first time in a week, I was alone in my home. But I knew the final act hadn't yet played out. Within 7 days, peace returned. I paid $700 for a professional crew to scrub the walls, remove the stench, and restore every room to order. My cabin once again carried only my scent, my silence, my memories. Then came the real justice. On Friday, Thomas called with news that made me smile for the first time in weeks. Mrs. Whitaker, the doctor who signed the false dementia report, has been suspended. The board found he issued at least a dozen fake certificates for cash. And as for Daniel and Vanessa, the prosecutor has upgraded the case asset fraud and conspiracy. It's now criminal. What does that mean exactly? I asked. They could face jail time if convicted, and the legal fees are already devastating them. That afternoon, my phone rang unexpectedly. Veronica's voice trembled through the line. "Margaret, please, we need to talk. Vanessa is desperate. Daniel has spent over $15,000 on lawyers, and the case hasn't even gone to trial." "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked coldly. We want to apologize. We want to fix this. Do you want to fix things I said, or do you just want me to drop the lawsuits because you're out of money?" "Please, ma'am," she begged. "Vanessa has children. Daniel could lose his job if this becomes public. She should have thought of that," I answered, "before planning to rob me." "And Daniel should have thought about his job before signing fake medical documents," I said coldly. "But you already have your cabin back." "You already won," Veronica pleaded. "Winning the cabin doesn't erase the humiliation. It doesn't return the stolen jewelry. And it doesn't undo the wound of betrayal by my own son. We can give the jewelry back. It's at my mom's house. The jewelry you claim was taken by mistake. The jewelry you stole during the confusion of moving, ma'am. Please, Veronica, tell your sister if she wants to speak to me, she must come here herself and bring every last piece of what she stole." I hung up with a strange mix of satisfaction and grief. Satisfaction because the plot they had crafted to ruin me was crumbling. Grief because my bond with Daniel was likely gone forever. 2 days later, Vanessa appeared at my door. She came alone, eyes swollen, clutching a bag. "Mrs. Whitaker, I came to return your things and to apologize." "Come in," I said. She sat stiffly in my living room like a reprimanded child and began to place items on the table. "Here are the pearl earrings. Here is the gold watch. Here are the silver coins. And here?" She hesitated, pulling out my necklace. "This too. I took it. Not by mistake. I wanted to sell it. We needed money. Debts piled up. Daniel lost money in bad investments. The mortgage is behind. Cards are maxed out. The kids need tuition. And that justified robbing me. It wasn't robbery. It was asking for help indirectly by invading my home and humiliating me publicly." Tears slid down her face. "I admit I behaved terribly, but I was desperate. When Daniel told me you barely use this place, I thought maybe we could share it. And then when we saw how expensive it was to keep 2 houses, we thought it'd be simpler if the cabin were legally his." "Legally his," I repeated. "You created the legal mess by forging medical documents. That was the idea of a cheap lawyer we saw. He told us it wasn't fraud if it was immediate family. A lawyer advised you to commit fraud. He said family transfers were different." I sat in silence, absorbing the sheer ignorance that had driven them into this mess. They had destroyed their finances and jeopardized their freedom because they followed the advice of a corrupt bargain basement lawyer. "Where is Daniel?" I finally asked. He didn't want to come," Vanessa murmured. "He says you're not his mother anymore." Those words stung deeper than I expected, yet they only confirmed I had chosen the right path. He says I'm not his mother. Yes, he says a real mother wouldn't sue her own son. He says you chose money over family. And what do you think, Vanessa? I think we started this, but I also think you went too far. We could have solved everything as a family without courts or police. How I demanded. How could we solve it as a family when you lied, deceived me, and plotted to rob me behind my back? But we're family. Families forgive. Families respect each other, I said coldly. And you disrespected me in every way possible. She dabbed her eyes, then met mine. What do I need to do for you to drop the lawsuits? Do you really want to know? Yes, I want Daniel to come here himself, look me in the eyes and apologize, not to you, not over the phone, to me. He won't come. He's too proud. Too proud to apologize to his mother, but not too proud to try stealing from her. He feels betrayed too. Margaret. Betrayed because you chose lawyers over family. I couldn't help it. A bitter laugh escaped. Do you truly think I chose lawyers over family? No. I chose justice over betrayal, dignity over humiliation, truth over lies. But we were family. You tried to destroy me. Vanessa rose. So there's no way to fix this. The way to fix it was never to do it in the first place. After she left, I sat on the terrace watching waves break against the shore, their rhythm indifferent to human failings. A week later, Thomas called. Mrs. Whitaker, Daniel, and Vanessa accepted a plea deal. A $25,000 fine, each 200 hours of community service, 2 years probation. No jail, I asked. No. But they'll carry permanent criminal records, and the forged medical report has been annulled. Your legal capacity is fully cleared. Between fines and attorney fees, it cost them over $50,000 to try to rob you nearly half the value of your cabin. They had lost more money trying to rob me than they ever could have gained if their scheme had succeeded. That night, sitting alone in my reclaimed cabin, I took stock of it all. I had lost my son. That was the most painful truth of all. Daniel had chosen resentment over repentance, pride over forgiveness. But in return, I had gained something more valuable, my dignity, my independence, and the confirmation that Margaret Whitaker was still strong, still intelligent, still capable of defending herself. My 70 years had not turned me into a frail old woman. They had made me wiser, better connected, and more determined to protect what I had built with such sacrifice. The next month, I did something I had never done before. I hired a part-time housekeeper to watch the cabin whenever I wasn't there, not because I couldn't manage the chores myself, but because I wanted to ensure no one could ever invade it again unnoticed. I changed every lock, installed a full security system with cameras, and updated my will, leaving the cabin to charity instead of to Daniel. If he wanted independence, then independence he would have in every sense of the word. 6 months later, a letter arrived. A letter, not a call. He didn't even have the courage to hear my voice. Mom, I hope you're doing well. The kids ask about you. Vanessa and I have learned our lesson. Maybe someday we can be a family again. I folded the paper and placed it in a drawer unanswered. True families don't betray each other for money. True families don't humiliate their elders. True families don't forge documents to steal from their own blood. Daniel had decided money mattered more than his mother. I had decided my dignity mattered more than his forgiveness. Each of us would live with the consequences. I lived in my cabin by the lake, free, independent, and at peace. They lived with debts, a criminal record, and the social shame of being known as the family who tried to swindle a 70-year-old woman. I've told you my story not for pity, but for truth. At 70 years old, I learned that dignity is worth more than money, and that family is measured by respect, not blood. If my story moved you, I ask you support me by subscribing so my voice continues to be heard. Leave a comment below. What would you have done in my place? Your words matter because they remind me I'm not alone. And remember this in your own life: never let betrayal silence you. Stand firm. Protect what you've built. Your dignity is always worth defending.